There we go. Welcome to the Boundary Baseline, you guys. This is how powerful women lead without burning out. I talk to so many women nowadays who have all of the strategies, they've gone to all the classes, they've collected all the courses, and they are burnt out. It's interesting to me because it's still that hustle and grind mentality that the bro marketers have been feeding us for a long time that we've been trying to get away from. And yet here we find ourselves. So we're going to talk today about how boundaries can play a part in that. This training is for you. If you know that boundaries matter, like I said, you've heard boundaries. That's been a buzzword in the industry for, I don't know, a couple of years now. But why is it still an issue for us? So this training is for you if you know that they matter, but you still find yourself setting them after you're already overwhelmed. Can I get an amen? Right? You're tired of over explaining, over giving, second guessing yourself, and you are wanting to run a business that feels cleaner and that doesn't require so much energy and it doesn't require access to you all the time. Boundaries. You're ready to stop reacting in the moment, right? You're ready to go from reactive to proactive. And here's the big kicker. This is the most important part. You are ready to show up for you as much as you show up for everybody else. Okay, real quick agenda. We're going to flip through these today because we've got a lot of them and I started late. So we're going to talk today about what boundaries actually are and why most people misunderstand them. We're going to talk about how a lack of boundaries is quietly impacting your business, whether you know it or not. It's kind of a sneaky little thing. It shows up in sneaky little ways. And what it looks like to get the right support so you're not trying to figure this out all by yourself. And at the very end, just for sticking in there with me, especially this morning, I have a little free gift for you. So I want to talk about how most women don't struggle with boundaries. This is kind of the mind shift on this. They struggle with when to set them, right? It's usually after something goes wrong. You're exhausted, you find yourself sitting at your desk, you're not making the money that you wanted to, it's midnight, you're so exhausted. And so you start thinking, I really need to set some boundaries. Okay, those boundaries needed to come up way before you got to that point of exhaustion. Okay, so often the boundaries aren't missing, we're just setting them at the wrong time, right? Right when we're in the middle of chaos and that crisis is when we're usually setting them, as opposed to treating them like they're a standard operating procedure. You have contracts that you send out to your clients. There are procedures that you use to invoice and to go live and to do all the things. Boundaries need to be part of that standard operating procedure as well. Okay. Most women set boundaries after something goes wrong, after they feel overwhelmed, after the resentment builds, which means at that point, the boundaries aren't structural, they're not an SOP or standing operating procedure, they're emotional, they're reactive. And we all know that when we see a child throwing a temper tantrum, you cannot make the best decisions when you're right in the middle of an emotional chaos storm. So instead of leadership in our business, boundaries feel like conflict and they feel like confrontation. I talk to women all the time, they don't want to set them because they feel like they're going to be mean or looked at as bitchy when they set them. So it feels like conflict. So why would we want to set a boundary that's going to create a conflict? Or once we've got the boundary set, we feel like it's something that we have to explain or something we have to defend all the time. Okay. This is why women avoid setting boundaries, or they over-explain them, or they apologize for them. I talk to a lot of women that have a price that they charge for a certain program, but every single person in their program is paying a different price because they're negotiating those boundaries, right? Because they abandon them when they feel challenged. The first time a conversation comes up that says, oh, I don't know, that seems a little expensive, we scramble to change that boundary and say, well, what about this? Or let's put you in a payment structure. Okay. This all leads to inconsistent standards, clients who test the limits, we all have those, resentment, huge, and exhaustion disguised as success. Okay. The problem is not the boundaries, it's how and when they've been implemented. I love this. I love this. Boundaries were not meant to be an emergency response. They're meant to be leadership infrastructure. And I don't think there's enough people talking about that. I hear, again, a lot of times people talking about boundaries and how important boundaries are, and we'll tell you how to set boundaries. But we're not talking about them as part of leadership infrastructure. A boundary is just as important to your business and to you and to your clients, we're going to talk about that in a minute, as a standard operating procedure, okay? As when your business hours are and how much money you charge, etc. So who am I? Let me back up and talk about a little introduction here. My name is Heather Morrison, and I like to call myself a worthiness warrior. I help women leaders rebuild internal worth first. So they stop outsourcing their values, they reclaim their voice, and they step into their visibility with boundaries, power, and self-trust. It's about being seen, being paid, and being respected without burning out or betraying who you are and why you started this business in the first place, right? So for most of my life, I tied my worth to what other people thought. I tied my internal worth to external validation. And I overgave and I over apologized and I overworked myself into burnout. Can I get an amen? Does this sound familiar to anybody? All while undercharging and taking on clients who filled my calendar but drained my soul. I built a business around everybody else's expectations but my own. And then I realized what I was creating was a business that didn't look like the business that I originally wanted to start. It wasn't one that lit me up. That's when I started doing all of the inner work. I stopped, I gathered a moment, and I went back to the beginning. And I started untangling my identity from other people's approval, rebuilding my boundaries, reclaiming my inherent worth. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And learning to lead from self-worth, not self-protection. Big difference. Okay. So I needed to understand why I kept ending up in the same place, right? There's that quote from Einstein that insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. I needed to figure out why I kept getting back to this place. When I really looked at how I got there and what it took to get out of that spot, it all came back to self-protection. Again, this is not something I think that people are talking about right now either. Why we don't go live, why we don't charge the price that we know that we're worth, right? It comes back to that self-protection. It comes back from trust. And I wasn't making decisions from trust. I was making them from fear and trying to stay safe and trying not to get it wrong and trying to be perfect. I am a recovering self-perfectionist. Okay. Those are all things that stem from self-protection. And I was making decisions to stay safe, not to move forward. I thought I was moving forward. I was doing all the busy work, right? I was busy, I was not productive. And I realized if anything was ever going to change, I had to start trusting myself. And that didn't require a new strategy. That required a new standard. I don't know if people do mic drops anymore. Is that a thing anymore? Mic drop? That is a mic drop moment. You don't need another strategy. I talk to people all the time where they're layering strategies and I'm doing the thing, but I'm doing the thing and I'm so busy and I'm working till midnight. I'm doing all the strategies and I'm putting all the courses into place. We haven't talked about the foundation of it all, which is a new standard. Okay, speaking of foundations, that's where the worthy no matter what standard was born. This is something that I created for myself, and I realized that at the heart of it all, this has to do with self-worth. Okay, when you realize that you are worthy no matter what your bank account looks like, no matter what the scale looks like, no matter what all those external metrics look like, you lead from a different spot. You show up differently. And whether you walk into a boardroom or you walk into a bedroom, you know that you're leading from a place of self-trust. And that changes everything. Okay, so let's think of our business as a house. Okay, so on the foundation of the house is the worthy no matter what. That's the standard. Whoops. The columns, okay? The pillars are the columns. That's what make up the house. And when all those are there and really functioning really well, you get the right clients. You get the income you want, and you get the freedom you deserve. That's your roof. Down below, worthy no matter what standard, when all those columns are firing and they're there and they're present and they're strong, You get the clients, the income, and the freedom. Okay. And inside those inside those columns are the value. They're the little cinder blocks that I have. This is part of what makes up my program. We're not going through all of that today. We're just going through one of those little tiny cinder blocks, which is the boundary baseline. But inside those columns are the value. Keep clicking off of this. Are the value and your voice and your visibility. Okay. And when all of those are present and they're there, again, that holds up your roof. But if any of those are not there, what happens is on the right. Okay. Your roof collapses. Okay. You might be strong in one of these, but chances are you're not strong in all three. We're going to find out today what you're really strong at and where there might still be some gaps, right? Okay. When all three of those are not strong, your business collapses, or you do, right? That's the point of exhaustion. So we need to close those gaps in your business and those gaps in your standards, okay? I want you to grab a piece of paper and a pen or your phone, whatever works for you. We're going to do a little pop quiz here real quick. This is a gap assessment. A gap assessment to figure out where those gaps are in your columns, in your house, that's leading to that exhaustion, that's leading to that self-doubt, that's leading to when you're sitting there going live, trying to go live on Facebook like today, right? You don't even bother getting live, right? Or when you go to make an offer, or when you go to stand and talk on a stage, or when you go to do a partner collaboration, you don't, okay? Because the worthy no matter what standard is not up to par. So let's talk about those gaps. Let's talk about where those gaps are. So scale of 1 to 4, you'll notice it's not 1 to 5. There's no 3 right dead in the middle. You have to go one way or the other way. So I want you to be really honest. And this is not a judgment, you guys. This is just an assessment. Because here's what I know. You can't figure out how to fix something if you don't know what's wrong in the first place. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 is 2 is nah, not really. 3 is kind of, yeah, and 4 is heck yes. Okay, so the first question. This is all about boundaries. How often are your boundaries clearly defined before a situation happens, before that chaos, instead of being created in the moment? Okay, I usually create boundaries after something goes wrong. I sometimes think ahead but still react in the moment. Number 3, I usually define boundaries before, but not always. Or number 4, you are rocking this. My boundaries are clearly established before anything begins. The genius of having done that is that it's a knee-jerk reaction, right? That's your default system. It's what you automatically go to, is that boundary. Question number 2. How consistently do you hold your boundaries even when someone pushes back? This is a big one. If you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, number 1, I often backtrack or soften my boundaries. Number 2, I try to hold them, but I give in under pressure. Number 3, I usually hold them, but it still feels uncomfortable. We're going to talk about that in a moment too. Number 4, you rocking this one too. I hold them cleanly without wavering. Question number 3, how often can you communicate a boundary without over-explaining, apologizing, or justifying it? This is a huge one. We put the boundary out there and then we apologize for it. I'm sorry, but. Number 1, I over-explain or apologize most of the time. Number 2, I sometimes do, depending on the situation. Number 3, I'm getting better, but it still shows up. Number 4, I communicate boundaries clearly and cleanly. If you do, you're my hero. Last question. How often do your boundaries feel like part of how you operate, right? That's standard operating procedure. Instead of something personal or emotional. One of the biggest keys about boundaries is to take the emotions out of it. And you guys, this is just a muscle that I've flexed over and over. I just put in the reps on boundaries. That's all. When I was first setting boundaries and trying to stand firm on them, I backslid a lot. And I still do on some, that we're just human, right? So how are you doing on this one, apologizing? Number 1, they feel personal and uncomfortable. Number 2, they sometimes feel structured, but often they feel emotional. Number 3, they're mostly structured with some emotional moments. Number 4, They feel like a natural built-in part of how I operate. Again, once you get those boundaries dialed in, that becomes your go-to. That becomes your standard. Okay. So just like you learned in high school, you're going to add up all your scores and you're going to divide them by 4 because we had 4 questions and your total score. Number 4, you operate from a boundary baseline. Okay. Your boundaries, they're pre-decided, they're clean, you hold them without emotions, you feel calm and clear, and you're operating from structure. Number 3, if you scored 3, you understand boundaries, but you don't fully trust them yet. You set boundaries, but you hesitate, you explain, you feel guilty, you apologize, you hold them until someone says, well, and then you immediately give in. Okay, they're there, but they're not fully anchored. A score of 2. Your boundaries are inconsistent and reactive. They're there when you set them after things go wrong. So they're reactive versus proactive. You struggle to hold them. You adjust them based on others' reactions. You're leading from emotion, not structure. Okay. I can't tell you how many times people back off of boundaries because they put other people's reactions more important, higher on the list of importance than they do their own feelings, right? You know you want this, you've created a boundary around it, but you're going to put someone else's reaction to that boundary as more important than your own decision. We do this all the time. And finally, if you scored number 1, okay? If you scored 1 point, average of 1, I'll get it. I'm ready for the weekend. My brain is gone. My brain's already there, ready for the weekend. You are operating without a boundary baseline. You avoid setting them all together. You over accommodate. You are that people-pleasing pretzel that I hear about all the time. You're resentful and you're overwhelmed and you are done. Your business is running on adrenaline, but not standards. And here's what I want you to notice, you guys. This has nothing to do with how capable you are. This has everything to do with the standard you're operating from. Okay? So if you're a 1 or a 2 or a 3, you don't need to try to set harder boundaries. You need to install a different baseline. That's the boundary baseline. Because until your boundaries are structural, your business will always require your exhaustion to function. I'm going to say that again. Okay? Until your boundaries are structural, not emotional, not reactionary, structural, your business will always require your exhaustion to function. If you Google the word burnout, or you go on Facebook and look for groups on burnout, millions of responses. People are burnt out because we're not going back to the foundation of it all to figure out what our standard is. What standard are we operating from? So what if there was a new way, right? The old way says, I'll set a boundary, this gets hard, or I'm working myself right till midnight, or I'm not making enough money, or my kids are complaining, or my husband says he never sees me, or clients aren't getting the attention that they need because I'm so stretched thin, right? That's the old way. What about if there was a new way? And the new way is when the boundaries exist and they are communicated. It's one thing to set them, but you need to tell other people about them. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And enforced, that's the third piece of the pie, before the pressure starts. Before the pressure starts. Okay? This is an identity shift. Boundaries aren't something you create mid-conflict. They're something you operate from. You guys getting the theme here? Right? Okay. So first I want to back up and I want to talk about a little bit about external versus internal boundaries. Okay. We tend to think of boundaries as something that we set with everyone else around us, with the kids, with the school, with the, with your PTO, with your clients, with your spouse. Those are all external boundaries. Okay. And some people are getting really good at dialing those in. Okay. There's been a lot of education about this for a while. Okay. But we need to have boundaries with ourselves as well. So every time you say, I'm going to show up, I'm going to make a post, I'm going to make the offer, I'm going to charge what I said I was going to charge. Okay. Every time you make that decision for yourself. And every time you say that, okay, there's a moment that follows that decision. And in that moment, you either reinforce your self-trust or you weaken it. So you sit and you create that boundary with yourself. I'm going to go live every Friday. I'm going to make offers for an hour every single morning. I'm going to charge this. This is what I want to charge. Okay. And then you have that moment of hesitation and then you don't do it. That moment right there, right, reinforces your self-trust. I got this. I got this. I'm worthy of this. Or you weaken it. And it's the moment where you decide, am I going to honor what I said I was going to do? Not honoring it has to do with a lack of self-boundaries that stem from a lack of self-trust. Okay, can you all see that this comes back to self-trust and self-worth? Okay, because when boundaries are clear, clients respect them. And a boundary, to be clear, is just about managing expectations. It's just an agreement that you create and communicate with your clients, your kids, your spouses. That's it. That's all a boundary is. It's what you've decided what you're available for and when you're not available for, and then you just tell the world that. Okay? So when your boundaries are clear, your clients respect them. Your conversations stay clean. Oh, okay, remember as per our agreement. Or remember when we talked about that in the beginning. Remember when you signed up for my course. Remember, okay? Those are things that you can point back to that are external. There's no emotion in saying, remember when you signed up, this was the expectation, right? As opposed to, well, I know that you're kind of going through a little struggle right now, and so maybe I'll just we'll just this month we'll just discount it for you a little bit, right? That, can you feel the difference? Even my shoulders came down on that one. Can you feel the difference in emotion on that one? Okay, leadership stays calm when you can point to a boundary or an agreement that you've communicated clearly and the other person has buy-in on. Your leadership stays calm. Okay? You move the needle forward on your business, especially when we're talking about internal boundaries. You move the needle forward on your business because when you've communicated that boundary to yourself, you know you're worthy of it. Right? There's that moment where you decide you're either going to weaken your self-trust or you're going to have integrity and do what you said you're going to do. Okay? This is how you move the needle forward on the business, those internal boundaries. And you maintain integrity. This is something that I struggled with for a long time. When I was in corporate America, which I was for like 15, 18 years, you gave a job to Heather and you never had to think about it done. Like, I had that reputation. You gave it to Heather, it was done. Consider it done. Never had to check on it again. I had such huge integrity. But when it came to me building my own business, when you're an entrepreneur, and especially when you're first starting out, you're generally a solopreneur. You're the marketing department, you're the sales department, you're the HR department. You have to have a load of integrity to get up every morning and do what you say you're going to do, because there's no boss standing outside the door saying, I was waiting for that report 2 hours ago. Where is it? That boss is you. This is why internal boundaries are so important. And we don't think about that boundary. We think about that as, well, it's something I told myself, or it's a to-do list. No, that's a boundary. Okay, and that comes from trusting yourself. Okay, when they're not clear, clients assume unlimited access. Okay, if you don't have in your standard operating procedure or your client agreement or your onboarding document that you are available to a client from 9 until 5, after hours they can send you an email and you're happy to respond to them the next business day, okay, they assume that there's unlimited access. Where did they get that idea from? This is not to blame you. This is to empower you. You are the business owner. You are allowed and expected to have these boundaries. When someone goes to Neiman Marcus or Target or Walmart or wherever, there's an expectation when their hours are open, when they're open, right? Their hours are posted, how much they're going to pay for something, the interaction they're going to have with a clerk, right? Those are just boundaries. Those are just expectations that are managed clearly, right? When you don't have boundaries, your scope of work expands. If you don't have a clear-cut boundary and agreement with someone about the scope of work, what you're going to do for them, and what they can expect from you, okay, the boundaries fall apart. You score 1, 2, or 3 on your gap assessment. Time loses all meanings when you have no boundaries. Time loses all meanings when you have no boundaries. You're working till midnight, right? That's a lack of an internal boundary. You're answering client calls all hours of the day and night and on the weekends. That's a lack of an external boundary. Okay. And leadership becomes draining. When you're on this hamster wheel, it's really difficult for your mind. The brain seeks, a solid structure. It seeks repetition. Okay, that's why we get up every morning and brush our teeth, because it's just on autopilot at this point. And your brain expects, I'm going to get up, and at this point of the day, that's when I'm going to brush my teeth. Okay, that's an expectation. That's a boundary you've set with yourself. And it just becomes baked into your muscle memory at some point. So when you can have some structure around your day, around your clients, around how much you charge, on what you're selling, it puts your mind at ease. Right? You don't have that energy drain. I'm a big believer in keeping clean energy. But when you're trying to do all of that, that's an energy drain when no one knows what the expectations are and you have to make them up on the fly. Oh my God, you guys, that drains your energy. So let's talk about boundary structures in your business and where they show up and where they need to show up, right? Availability. Boundaries around availability. And again, this is not only external, this is internal. I work from, and I'm just shooting out numbers here. I work from 9 to 4. My clients are able to contact me during that time. From 4 to 6, I continue doing my business work for me. At 6 o'clock, I turn off my computer and I'm done. Now, here's what I want to say about that. I don't really believe in balance because there's some days when you are going to need to work until midnight. That's just the reality, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Especially if you're a solopreneur, okay, that's just the reality. But if you're doing that every single day, that's when there's an issue, okay? So not only availability for clients, but availability for yourself as well, okay? Your response time, there needs to be something around your response time. Otherwise, your clients will say, well, I emailed you yesterday, or I emailed you 10 minutes ago and I still haven't heard anything, okay? There's an expectation around response time. I'm available from 9 until 4. You can email me after those hours. I'll get back to you within 24 hours. Boom. There's an expectation that during business hours, we respond within 1 to 2 hours, whatever it is. And you can communicate that in anything. You can communicate that in an email, on your onboarding documents, etc. Okay. Your scope of work, huge, you guys. Before, especially when you're working one-on-one with clients, before you sit down with a client, there needs to be an expectation of what you will provide, what they can expect from you, and what you can expect from them. Okay. I want to point out here that when we're talking about boundaries, I don't want it to all be one way, right? A boundary is also existing for your client as well. So it puts their mind at ease, keeps that clean energy about what they can expect from you. Okay? It's managing expectations. I do not like surprises. I don't like surprise parties. I don't like someone jump scaring me. I like to manage expectations. If I know going into a situation what I can expect, whether that's good or whether that's bad, I am 100% at ease. Okay? It's the not knowing of what's going to happen. And when you don't have boundaries, your whole day is a snow globe of not knowing. Okay? And you're very reactionary. Communication style, again, tell your clients that you're available from this time to this time. Outside of that time, they can reach you by email or text or Facebook or WhatsApp or whatever it is. Make sure that communication style is noted as well. And then emotional responsibility. Okay. Need to have boundaries around emotional responsibility. If you have a client that you're working with and they are consistently, telling you that it's not working or that you're not working or that this is not what they signed up for, even after you've communicated exactly what they signed up for, you have a right to fire a client. And I'm saying that again, you have a right to fire a client. If your client is emotionally draining, trust me, you will never win that client over. And the longer you stay with them, I know this is pure physics. Time spent in one area is time taken away from another area. And if you're spending all your time working with that client that's sucking your soul, that leaves you less time for clients that are putting in the work and really want to be there and need you. Okay, so if you're trying to convince somebody that the work that you're doing for them is, vital and whatever it is, and they're not going to see it, they are not going to see it. It's time to cut bait. I don't know if anyone else uses that term. My husband says that. Are we going to fish or cut bait? It's okay to cut bait. It's okay to fire a client. That's emotional responsibility. And that goes two ways. That's emotional responsibility to yourself as well. That's the not talking to yourself, not saying things to yourself that you wouldn't say to your best friend. That's a boundary with yourself. Okay. So boundaries are filters, not walls. People are really reluctant sometimes to put up a boundary because they feel like they're pushing people away. Well, I don't want to be mean. And especially as women, we're such caretakers, right? We want to take care of everybody. So by putting up a boundary, well, that sounds bitchy, or that sounds mean, or that sounds right. It's not. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to give you a little quote that tidies that up, sums that up very nicely. Okay. Boundaries create expectations. They create relationships. They, clean relationships and clean energy. Okay. What's really mean is having a boundary in your head and not communicating it. Okay. And then getting mad because the client didn't know the boundary existed in the first place. This is like when people say, or like women, I mean, I don't hear this too much anymore, but when I was younger, they, comedians would say, well, my husband, asked me if I was mad. And I said, well, if you don't know why I'm mad, I'm not going to tell you. What? Like, what? But we do this all the time with our clients or our kids or our spouses or, the dentist or whatever it is. We don't communicate a boundary clearly, and then we get mad at them when they are sucking us dry or they're, taking advantage of us. Look, did you communicate your boundary? We can't continue to keep getting mad at the people that are sucking us dry when we continually hand them the straw. Boom! That is a writer downer, you guys. That is a post-it note on the refrigerator. You cannot continue to get mad at the people who suck you dry if you keep handing them the straw. Oof, so good. Okay. So what happens when you've got structure? We know that without structure, everything feels personal, right? You feel personally attacked. It's not, your product or whatever you're selling is getting personally attacked. It's like, no, that's just a product. That's separate, right? Or you set a boundary and then someone challenges it and you think, well, maybe I am being selfish. Maybe I am being bitchy. I can guarantee you the CEO of Disney is not thinking that, right? Again, especially as women, not always, but especially as women, we tend to think that we need to take care of everybody else, okay? Without boundaries, every limit feels confrontational. Every decision drains you because, again, you're in the middle of the storm and you doubt yourself all the time. This is when we second guess ourselves. When a client or two comes back to us and they say that they're not getting something from us, then we think, well, maybe this isn't maybe this isn't what my calling is, or maybe this isn't. It's like, no, that's somebody's personal opinion of you. And that's okay. They're allowed to have them. Okay. But if you have that boundary with yourself, right? You're dedicated to this. I know what I'm providing is good. Okay. When you have that boundary with yourself, that takes care of that. Okay. With structure. Oh, this makes me feel so good. When you have structure, clients know what to expect. That's a clean expectation. That's managing expectations. It's one of my favorite things in the world. You stop negotiating everything. It is what it is. I was on a call yesterday with Kelly Roach. Super successful entrepreneur. I think she's got 5 or 6 businesses now. And the panel, she was doing this summit, and the panel asked her, well, what do you do with a client who says, I have to ask my spouse if we have the money, or I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to afford this. She said, I allow them to consume my free resources. I point them in the direction of my free resources, and I let them consume those because then they'll get to know me and they'll get to trust me a little bit more. And I let them know, great, when you're ready to come back and XYZ, join the program, get in a call, whatever it is, I'll be here for you. Okay. But she doesn't negotiate, right? Here's what I know. If you have to pull people into a program or pull people into working with you, you're going to have to drag them around the whole time. You want those people that are like, yes, sign me up. I got this. Where's my credit card? Get me my credit card. That are eager to sign up with you. Okay. And your authority increases naturally. Here's a great example of that, you guys. I used to be, president. Well, I don't know what the position was called, but it was a women in networking chapter. And I was president for, 2 years, 3 years. And at some point I thought, okay, you know what? I'm stepping away from this because I really wanted to grow my business. And so I made an announcement one day and I said, I have really enjoyed this group. It's really filled my cup, et cetera, et cetera. I love all of you women, but I really want to grow my business. And to that end, I'm announcing that I'm stepping down and we can open up elections in 30 days. After that, when I was walking out of the meeting, a woman came up and approached me and she said, I want to let you know that I'm so appreciative that you did that. And I thought, maybe she didn't like me as president. She said, you gave me the model of what it looks like to gracefully exit something that I don't want to be a part of anymore. And I wasn't doing anything. I was doing that for my benefit. And if I had thought about it, I would have been like, oh, this is selfish. There's no one else running. There's no one else that has time. There's no one. I wasn't feeling selfish about it. I had a boundary. I was sticking with it. And by me doing that boundary for me, it modeled for another woman that she's allowed to have boundaries too. That gives me cold chills, you guys. And what it allowed the other women in the group to do is stand up and be leaders. And I left and the group functioned for years after that. It was fantastic because there were really highly capable women there that weren't going to step forward until I stepped back. But that is the beauty of having a boundary. And what did that do? That increased my authority on boundaries, right? That increased my authority. And it led another woman to make a decision that she was hemming and hawing with that was really uncomfortable for her. Okay? Just by knowing that it's okay to have boundaries. Okay? When your boundaries are rock solid, they stop feeling like confrontation and they start functioning like structure. That's the way it should be. Okay? This is my favorite quote of all time, you guys. The only people who will have a problem with you establishing boundaries are the people who benefited from you not having any in the first place. Screenshot that. I don't care where that needs to post it, whatever. Okay. These are the only people. The rest of the people are going to go, yeah, good for you. Good on you, sister. Right? Good for you. I was wondering when you were going to stop, bending over backwards for people. Or I was wondering when you're going to stop saying yes to everything. But you'll notice setting boundaries to begin with, especially when you're going back to clients that don't have any boundaries or you're going back to a spouse or kids, it's a challenge because it's a little crunchy. And people start thinking, whoa, no. This isn't how it's always been with you. I've always been able to, and they're not going to say this, but I've always been able to push my way through with you, right? So they're going to have a problem with you setting those boundaries because they benefited from you not having any in the first place. Okay, that's when you know it's working. That's when you know you're on the right path. When you get a little pushback from people, you're like, oh, that's not, when I signed up, it wasn't like that. Yeah. So we've made some changes in our business and going forward, I love that phrase, going forward, because you're not setting yourself up for debating the past. Right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm acknowledging that that's what it looked like in the past, right? But going forward, such a powerful statement. You guys, thank you so much for hanging in with me today. We covered a lot of stuff, right? But what we covered today is only one piece of the puzzle. Boundaries alone don't solve the problem. And if your worth is still tied to performance and approval and over-serving, okay, if your self-worth, your internal worth is always tied to those external validations, boundaries will always feel uncomfortable. So you can take what we learned today and go out in the world and try to instill those boundaries. Perfect. Realize you're going to get a little feedback or a little pushback, a little feedback on that, right? But if your worth is still tied to their reaction, right? Remember how I said we make other people's reactions more important than our decisions? If your worth is still tied to that, your boundaries are always going to feel uncomfortable, okay? Because the reality is it's not a boundary problem, it's a standard problem. We need to raise our standards, okay? Stop negotiating your limits emotionally, okay? Your standards simply exist, not negotiable, okay? Your boundaries stop feeling confrontational and they start feeling like structure. When you've got structure in your life, when you know you're going to get up every day and go work out, when you know you're going to get up every day and, oh, time for me to brush my teeth. When you have that structure and that schedule, isn't life easier when that becomes your de facto, right? Okay. So like I said in the beginning, the boundary baseline is just one little teeny tiny block. Right? We had that graphic that had all the pillars, and in those pillars, there were little teeny tiny blocks. The boundary baseline is just one of those little blocks, okay? And it's part of the value pillar. And that was part of the whole foundation, which was the worthy no matter what standard. And in the worthy no matter what standard, we stabilize everything. Your pricing, your boundaries, your clients, your self-trust, your voice. Okay. So if this resonated with you today, I'd love for you to hop on a call and find out what getting more support looks like. So you can just simply comment call in the comments. Okay. That's it. No strings attached. You just hop on a call, see what it's like in your world right now, and see if there's a way we can make this fit for you. Okay. I want to share this with you. This is your free gift at the very end for sticking in there with me today, especially given the late start. Again, thank you guys so much for sticking with me. I love the technology when it works. Okay. One of the things that I hear quite often is that I'd love to set boundaries, but I don't want to be bitchy. I don't want to be pushy. I don't want it, right? And again, someone else's reaction shouldn't be more important than our decision. However, when I was in corporate America, I used to have a boss and she would call me the Velvet Hammer because I had the loveliest way of delivering bad news. And so to that end, I wrote this script, this how to say no nicely. And you could just comment script in the chat for that resource and I'll send it over to you. But it's just in different scenarios, like how to do it in a business setting, how to do it in a personal setting, how to back out of something once you've already committed to it, how not to commit to it in the first place. One of the things I love is that at the end of a conference that you get a little something, a little niblet, a little nugget to walk away with, and this is the nugget. I can also send you the slides if you want the slides. Happy to share those. You can just comment slides. So either comment call if you want to hop on a call real quick with me, excuse me, or script. I'll shoot you over the script or the slides. I'd be happy to share those as well. You did it. We did it. We got on the call. We made stuff happen. I want to thank you for choosing yourself today. And whether your next step is with me or with someone else, my wish for you is simple: that you stop questioning your worth and you start living from it. Because here's what I know, and this is what I've built my business on: you are worthy no matter what. And if you're actually ready to live in that place of knowing that you're worthy no matter what, that's exactly what this work is designed to support. So drop call in the comments, wherever those comments end up, and we can chat. For the rest of you, have a great day. Well, for all of you, have a great day. Thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed our time together, and I will see you soon. Go ahead and have a great day.